I sincerely apologize for my part in their grief.
Jacksonville's music scene has seen chaos before, but nothing like this. A father walking free after testifying against his own son, a TK rapper Ksoo. To many, it felt like the ultimate betrayal, raising serious questions about loyalty, family, and survival. This story goes deeper than rap beef. It starts with a man who raised his son inside a violent world, watched him grow into the life he taught him, and then turned on him in court to save himself. Today, that father is home, while his son faces the possibility of spending his life behind bars. To understand how things reach this point, you have to understand Jacksonville's drill culture, a scene with its own rules and its own casualties. A TK led by Youngin Ace stood on one side. 6 Block, held down by Fulio before his death, stood on the other. Diss tracks weren't just songs, they were taunts tied to real bodies, and every video felt like a message sent directly to the enemy. Ksoo wasn't just talking, he was deeply involved, which set the stage for everything that followed. The turning point traces back to January 15, 2019. The Robinson family was driving when shooters opened fire on their SUV. Blue, Ksoo's father, was behind the wheel. His stepson, Boss Goon, died in his arms. His own son, Abdul Jr., was shot in the head, but survived after months of recovery. Another family member was hit 7 times and left paralyzed. The violence broke the family mentally and emotionally. A year later, on the anniversary of Boss Goon's death, Ksoo and his cousin Scotty were seeking revenge. Their target was Charles Lil Buck McCormick, a rapper who had mocked their dead in a viral diss track. The crew tracked his location through social media and public records. Their getaway driver, Dominique Barner, later testified that he pinpointed Lil Buck's apartment after recognizing a building from one of his photos. Their first attempt failed because Lil Buck was on vacation in Las Vegas, but when he returned and posted that he was home, they moved quickly. After stealing a Nissan Altima, the group waited outside his apartment complex for hours. When Lil Buck finally stepped out, they briefly lost track of him due to a mix-up involving another car linked to their circle. He ended up driving to a temp agency, trying to turn his life around. The crew followed. While sitting in the parking lot waiting for Lil Buck to come out, Ksoo allegedly FaceTimed Raekwon Howard, an affiliate of the rival 6 Block, taunting him by saying they had just caught one of his people slipping. It was a chilling move, one that showed how personal and reckless this feud had become. When Lil Buck walked back toward his car, the trap was already set. Ksoo stepped out of the vehicle with an AR-style pistol, ready to ambush him the moment he got close. Their plan was simple: hit fast, escape faster. Ksoo moved too early. Before the plan could play out, he jumped out of the car, startling Lil Buck, who tried to flee. Witnesses later testified that Ksoo chased him behind the building, and multiple shots rang out. When it was over, Lil Buck was found critically wounded, his body brutally torn apart. An off-duty police officer saw the shooting and immediately pursued the suspects. This is where Ksoo's father, Blue, enters the story. After the shots, Ksoo sprinted back to the car, and the group sped away with police behind them. They tore through residential streets at nearly 100 miles per hour before losing control and crashing the stolen Nissan on Towns Boulevard. The crew scattered. Ksoo ran into nearby woods and called a woman named Natalie, who later testified that she picked him up as sirens echoed through the area. Scotty and Barner forced their way into a woman's home, held her hostage, and changed into her husband's clothing while the police searched the neighborhood. Then they called Blue for help. He could have stayed out of it, but instead he drove straight through a police perimeter to pick them up. He took them behind a Burger King, where they burned the clothing tied to the murder. Blue admitted in court that Scotty and Barner told him everything, and that he still chose to help them cover it up. That decision alone put him at risk of a 20-year sentence for accessory charges. And when pressure hit, Blue did what he'd done before: cooperate. In the 90s, he had already worked as a confidential informant, and when detectives confronted him with a recording from a wired source, his demeanor changed instantly. On March 19, 2020, Blue agreed to flip on his own son. Detectives told him plainly, "We don't care about you. We want the shooter." Blue saw his only path out. In court, he justified his cooperation by talking about his young children, 6-year-olds and an 8-year-old daughter, asking when he'd be home for games and school events. He brought up his failing health: diabetes, high blood pressure, heart failure, kidney issues. But many questioned where that fatherly concern had been when Ksoo was growing up. Blue raised him in the streets. Ksoo was a product of the world his father lived in and passed down. Defense attorneys attacked Blue's credibility hard. They pointed out contradictions, his past work as an informant, and his attempts to profit from Ksoo's music career, trying to manage him and secure deals while still living a street lifestyle. They argued he helped create the problem, then betrayed the son who followed his example. On July 28, 2025, Blue took the stand and faced Ksoo directly. It was one of the coldest moments in the courtroom. He could barely look his son in the eye. When asked who the shooter was, he answered without hesitation, "My son." And when asked to state the name, he said Hakeem, the name he gave him at birth. Blue confirmed that he recognized Ksoo's walk, his build, the way he moved. He said he'd seen those same movements in music videos and around the house. When investigators showed him the surveillance footage, he identified Ksoo immediately. But even without Blue, the evidence was overwhelming. Forensic video experts used 3D modeling to analyze the shooter's height and build, ruling out Scotty and Barner. Ksoo's fingerprints were found on the AR-style pistol left in the crashed car. His hair was on a t-shirt. DNA, witnesses, and surveillance all pointed in one direction. And then there was the social media. Ksoo had posted right after the murder, "Kill a Nakshay, then get my toes done," and even featured the same weapon in a music video. Prosecutors played the post inside the courtroom. Blue testified he begged his son to delete it, but it was too late. Ksoo had essentially confessed online. And that isn't even the end of Ksoo's legal troubles. He still faces another murder charge for the killing of 16-year-old Lil Bibby in 2019, a case where neighbors described the gunfire as sounding like a war zone. Ksoo had been openly referencing that murder in his music, putting Bibby's face on cover art, making songs about the incident, and acting shocked when police eventually charged him. In many ways, the Bibby case is even more damaging because of how blatantly he documented it himself. So even if he somehow beat the Lil Buck case, he still had another mountain ahead. When it came time for Blue's sentencing, he gave a long plea to the judge, talking about his cooperation in multiple cases, his health issues, and his young children. The judge acknowledged that he wasn't the shooter and that his testimony helped solve several crimes. But she also made clear that he played a direct role in covering up a murder. He broke through a police perimeter to retrieve the suspects, helped burn their clothing, and even provided money so one of them could leave town. Ultimately, the judge sentenced Blue to time served, 1,898 days. He walked out of the courtroom that same day. But it wasn't true freedom. He now has 2 years of community control with GPS monitoring and 3 more years of probation. His address is being kept confidential due to safety concerns, and most of his family has cut ties with him. His reputation is permanently marked. Meanwhile, Ksoo received life without parole at just 26 years old. No appeals expected to save him. When the verdict was read, he simply lowered his head. What else could he do? His own father's testimony sealed his fate. The tragedy is bigger than one family. It exposes how fragile street loyalty really is. When pressure closes in, people save themselves. Blue chose his future over his son's. Barner chose 20 years over life. Everyone protected their own survival. Blue will be home for the holidays, sitting at dinner tables and taking his kids to school. Ksoo will spend his first Christmas knowing he is never coming home. How does a father live with that? Knowing his cooperation ensured his own son would die behind bars? The streets have been debating this case for months, and the consensus is harsh. Blue violated every code. You don't testify against your own child. You raised him, shaped him, and led him into that lifestyle. When consequences come, you're supposed to face them together. Even Young and Ace said they spent $50,000 on Ksoo's legal defense, trying to help. But none of that matters when your own father points at you in court. This case shows what the street life really leads to. Broken families, destroyed futures, and wounds that never heal. Ksoo's story is a warning about the reality behind the music, the disses, and the persona. It's not entertainment. It's a path that ends in death or prison, and in his case, it cost him both his freedom and his family. So while Blue tries to rebuild his life, Ksoo sits in a cell knowing his father chose freedom over loyalty, a pain deeper than any sentence. And that's the true tragedy here. Not just a young man losing his future, but a father willing to sacrifice his own child to save himself. What do you think? Was Blue wrong for testifying, or was he simply trying to protect the rest of his family? Drop your thoughts below and subscribe. More stories are on the way. Stay safe out there.